Hey everybody, in this module I'm going to talk about a handful of different ways that I like to practice scales. Scales to me are essential for every real practice session. Some kind of regimen of long tones, scales, and musical practice to me makes up the perfect session. Scales are great for your ear, for your technique, and I'm sure you've practiced them before, but it's kind of endless. The story that sticks out to me the most that I heard from one of my college professors back in the day was that he went to a master class with the great Michael Brecker, and Michael Brecker, when asked what he's practicing right now, this was years into his career, went, "Oh, I'm working on my major scales." So it's really a never-ending thing. You can practice your major scales ad nauseum, and if you do it the right way, they'll never get old, and you'll keep being able to get things out of them. So way number one that I like to practice my major scales is just as long tones, half notes with the metronome. I'm going to put my metronome on 80 here, and I'm going to use the concert B flat scale, so key of G for me on alto. 1, 2, 3. Now you might think, I'm not going to watch the rest of this module. That's really simple and boring. But don't dismiss just playing your scales low and slow, long tones. There are few better things you can do for your sound and your time than practice your scales slowly. But as soon as that feels comfortable, it'll only take a minute. Go ahead and play like this classic kind of, I call it the solo and ensemble proficiency kind of rhythm. 2, 3. And everything that I'm demonstrating here, you can practice slurred, tongued, at different volumes. This is a way to keep your mind engaged as you continue to practice your scales. So if you're wanting to work on your swing feel, a great thing to do would be to practice the scale up and down in a single octave and go all the way up to the ninth, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then one note above. In this case, it's my A, or concert C. I'll do it without the metronome so that you can really hear the swing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and one more way to practice your scales is full range on the saxophone. So to the highest note that's in that scale and the lowest note that's in that scale. And of course, with all of these exercises, I'm going to play these in all 12 keys and spend the most time on the keys that I'm the least comfortable in, okay? I might pick one of these exercises to take around the circle of fifths or some other order that gets me around all 12 keys. Scale patterns are the next thing I'm going to talk about, and scale patterns are where things get really endless, okay? One of the first scale patterns that I learned, and you may have learned already, is the scale in thirds. So I'm skipping up a step and then going back down. Skip, step, skip, step. You can take that concept full range too. Another thing you can do with that pattern similarly is kind of invert the direction, which would sound like this. So I might call that like inverted scales in thirds. You can also play scales in fourths and fifths. The next next kind of pattern I'm going to talk about deals with triads and seventh chords. So something that I really like to practice are my diatonic. Diatonic means in the key. Diatonic triads and diatonic seventh chords. That means starting these arpeggios on each note of the scale and forming a chord, or as we play them on a single note instrument, an arpeggio. So it sounds like this. So those are diatonic triads. Here are diatonic seventh chords. I'm kind of making up the endings of some of these as I go along. Just go to where your ear takes you. If you are more of a book kind of learner, then a great book is the Pares or Pares, P-A-R-E-S, Scales for Saxophone book. Tons of patterns, tons of different things to do with your scales if you're more of a reading learner. Okay, and one more linear pattern I can talk about, and you can go a lot of places with this too, is just a pattern like this. I'm not sure exactly what I would call this, but it sounds like this. Try to learn it by ear. Okay, so I think you get the idea. Note that I haven't played a note outside of the key yet. Diatonic, again, means in the key. So I'm taking a major scale. You can also do this with any kind of minor scale or any kind of different scale like an octatonic scale or a hexatonic scale, and do similar patterns, and you're going to find different shapes in there. So see how many shapes you can play your major scales in first. Ask me any questions you have about any of the exercises you heard in here today. There are tons of books with scale patterns in them, so don't be afraid to dive into those. Ask me about other resources for scales, and happy practicing. Take these around 12 keys. See you next time.